It is a scam when you don't allow everyone to operate on fair terms.
We are the Robin Hoods of sports betting. We take something back from the rich bookies and enable our customers to beat them instead.
Hi guys, Alex here, episode 51 of the Trademate Sports Betting Podcast. Today I'm joined by, I should have asked you this before, mate, how to pronounce your last name, but I'll give it a crack. Anthony Kaminskas. How are you, mate?
That's not too bad. That's a decent effort, yeah. Anthony Kaminskas, yeah, it's pretty phonetic. There's worse Eastern European surnames to try and pronounce on that one, so it's sort of, yeah, Lithuanian it is, so yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry, mate. Not off to a great start, but welcome to the podcast. Mate,
Cheers,
you've had quite the journey in the betting industry, working with Paddy Power Betfair and horse racing and Greyhounds too for the best part of a decade. And then now you've moved on to being more of a pro gambler and consultant. So, mate, there's lots to cover today, and I'm excited for this one.
Yeah, man, should be good. I've seen some of the guests you've had on, and some of them are pretty damn good. So hopefully can hang in there for a while and compliment them. So yeah, hopefully.
Better not let me down, mate.
I'll do my best.
Nah, it's all right. You're a superb guest, mate. Why don't we just start with how you got started with Paddy Power? And I find I've talked a little bit about this lately about how you actually got into the industry. Like, did you have any degrees or any experience anywhere to get you started with Paddy Power?
Yeah, so like I would have grown up in Rochdale, which is just like an old-fashioned mill town. Like it's about 10 miles north of Manchester city centre, and there's not much going on there. So I think it wouldn't be a town that's famous for much. Basically, a couple of singers back in the day, nothing really else happening. So yeah, I grew up there. Family background just wouldn't have been in gambling at all, like very, very risk averse, like wouldn't even have bought a lottery ticket type of thing. And occasionally we would have had like the odd bet on the Grand National and like watched it with a granddad sort of thing. But yeah, no real background in anything betting related. Went to school, and the high school wouldn't have been that renowned for its educational prowess, shall we say. Our high school would have had like 1,600 kids in it, and like we had real good football teams, and it was kind of my high school was a little bit more, I felt a little bit more sports focused, and I was big into my sport and big into playing football and played a little bit of tennis. But educationally, like I was more of a messer, didn't really have much of a worldview, didn't really get outside Manchester that often. Like I'd never been to London until I was like 22, and it's only a couple of hours drive away, sort of thing. So like I
got to London when I was 21, mate. So I'd be
oh Jesus, that's even more embarrassing. So, but yeah, we would just stayed around the local area. Like the football team would have been quite central to my life. Like all my friends would have been around the football scene, either playing football or watching football. We used to follow Rochdale Football Club, and we would have gone to like socially. I would have gone to like 46 every single league game, basically home and away, and it was just basically the center of my life. Basically, we'd travel around doing that, and kind of got by at school. Like I was, like I'd say, I was quite naturally bright, but like incredibly lazy because of that. Like finding things a little bit too easy, sort of thing, but then not applying myself. Whereas my brother would have struggled a little bit more, but like been very applying himself, and like the mother would have always got onto me saying, "Jesus, if you apply yourself like your brother, like you could do great things." And but I was just always the lazy one, sort of thing. So I just scraped into college, which is after high school, which would be like 16 to 17. It's like non-compulsory in England, so like you can leave school at 16. A lot of people at our school would have left school at 16 and just got basic enough jobs. So I would have tried my hand at college, done a bit of business studies, a little bit of English. I used to like my English. I think I can write quite well. Would have wanted to be a journalist back in the day. So journalism was like my real big passion originally. Like when I was 15, I would have like combined that with my football interest, and there was like there was a local, a national newspaper called the Non-League paper, which was like just covered non-league semi-professional football. So I used to travel to Wakefield to write match reports on a team. So it was like an hour and a half on the train, like when I was 15, go and watch a football match, file a report and come back and for like 30 quid sort of thing. That kind of progressed into writing for the News of the World, which would have been, they would have had a football pullout called Score, and I would have wrote reports on Barnsley Football Club and then Rochdale Football Club as well. And I kind of gave that up because it was kind of like affecting my enjoyment of football a little bit. Because I'd have like mates in the stands and then I'd have to go in the press box, and I was like 17 and like I'd be hanging around with all these 50-year-old men too. Yeah, stunk of fags and can't stand fags and cigarettes, that is, and yeah, like I just kind of it kind of quelled my passion for journalism a little bit. And it was kind of around the same time that I was kind of just noticing like gambling odds. Like my friends at school would, like, his one lad's mum, he would have brought in like the football coupon with the football prices on, and we'd talk about the odds, and then his mother would stick on like £1 accumulator for us and stuff like that. And that kind of got me into it. And as I was like 16, 17, like too young to bet, but I was quite tall, like I'm 6'3.5" now. So like the height would have enabled me to get into betting shops just slightly earlier than I should have been, sort of thing. And then, yeah, the interest kind of progressed from there. And I scraped into university by the skin of my teeth. Like I dread to think what would have happened if I wouldn't have got into university, basically because I didn't get the grades for the course that I wanted to do, and it ended up being unsubscribed, undersubscribed, and I ended up just sneaking in through clearing. I had this interest in gambling. I was slightly business minded. I'd always worked, like as a kid, like working in the news agents and before school, just behind the till, and I would have had like paper ends, delivering papers and stuff like that. I was like always trying to make a few quid, sort of thing. So basically, I lost my train of thought a small bit there. I kind of basically scraped into university, and I had the choice. I originally wanted to do journalism, but I canned that off for the reasons I mentioned. And then I kind of got into like business, a little bit of business economics, started learning about economics, and kind of interested me a little bit. And there was 2 courses in the UK. There's actually 3 in the world at the time. One was in Salford, which is quite local to me. One was in Nottingham, and then the other one was in Las Vegas. And it was like economics degrees that in your final year kind of had modules that were focused towards the gambling industry. So I have no idea why 2 of them were in the UK. But I ended up going to Salford and doing business economics and like specializing a small bit in like gambling economics in my final year. And it was really interesting. It just had some really interesting lecturers and like proper Rain Men type lecturers, like that were just on a different level. And it was just like listening to them, learning about things, and just basically just trying to get into gambling that way. So when I was at university, I was trying to earn a few quid, and I ended up working in a bookmakers for Coral, which is would have had a big load of shops over here. It's like part of GVC now, so Ladbrokes Coral. And I would have worked in shops for them in Swinton, in North Manchester, and then Salford. And I don't know if you've ever been to Salford. You'd say you've been to London, but like I would not recommend it. Like we used to like Salford Precinct would have been the shop where my shop was, and Salford Precinct is rough. Like someone got shot dead outside the Coral shop one day. Like it was, and it wasn't that bad, but it was rough. It was really rough, and we had to pull the shutters up like an hour before we finished and get taxis home, and like you'd be stuck in. I had my phone robbed in the shop while I was working there and stuff like that. It was an interesting grounding to be around, like to be around that environment and trying to like take bets and like trying to start off sort of thing. So
imagine if you're a sharp gambler coming into place a bit. That'd be quite funny. You'd stick out.
You would have paid on your card anyway. You wouldn't have paid cash, I tell you. You wouldn't have got out alive. But yeah, I did that for a little while, and then I was actually working for Coral and Betfred at the same time, just without telling each other. So I was working for Betfred at Old Trafford football ground, and they had the license for taking bets at Old Trafford. And it's just Manchester United's ground for people that don't know. And So yeah, I was working there, and I ended up working in a lounge rather than in an actual part of the stand. Rather than being part of like the general clientele of the football stadium, I was like in a lounge. I was working in a place called the Northeast Quadrant, and it was where all the VIPs were, and you were like seeing a few quid flying back and forth, and people trying to show off with a few bets in front of the mates and sort of things, and kind of like taking bets off them sort of thing. And then that progressed to getting a job part time at Betfred's head office, which would have been between Manchester and Liverpool. I think they are still there at the moment. It's in an area called Birchwood, I think it's classed as Warrington. And I ended up working there, working on the phones, taking bets for Betfred for a couple of years, just part time, travelling to and from university, basically on the train, doing the late nights, doing the early Saturday morning shifts and stuff like that. And I really got exposed to just every type of customer basically on the phones. Like Betfred would have had like the trading, I don't know what they were doing. And like my understanding of the gambling industry mid 2000s was what I could see, and I didn't know a hell of a lot. And Betfred used to lay really smart guys, decent chunky horse racing bets on the phones. So like there was 3 customers in particular, a chap called Jason Knowles, there was a chap called Barry Chigurtha, and a lad called Bob Rothman. And they were like the 3 main smart day-to-day customers that Betfred would have laid. And like they'd come on for horses, and they'd be like 300 quid each way, 28 to 1. And the horses would be going off, every one of them would go off 4 to 1. Like, and it was, my head was just blown just watching these guys take money, and they were kind of using them as marks. I don't know what the deal was, but they're these customers they just could not beat, who would take 6 figures off them. And it was just really interesting that where you go from seeing people bet in shops, and you'd see them bet in the shops and race-to-race punters and losing money, the standard churn of the normal customer. And then you're suddenly exposed to customers that were just winning money. And I was like, Jesus, I'd like to win money. Like this would be, Jesus, this would be some laugh if I was taking 6 figures a year out of this sort of thing. Like, geez, I wouldn't have to get a proper job, that kind of thing. And it was just that kind of like spiked my interest. And another thing that really spiked my interest was when I was at Coral, they used to send like to the shops, they used to send like a trading bulletin, like what you should do and what bets to look out for and stuff. And they'd be like, the trading bulletin would be like, you need to push Yankees to the customers. Yankees would be like, I don't know if you have them and if you're aware of what Yankee is, but it's like 11 bets and all the combinations without the signals, but without the singles basically. So, and they would like push them. They're the most profitable bets we can lay. Try, and if a customer wants to do a couple of horses, get them to stick him in a Yankee, and like the company wins more money off them. So that was the thing. And then it was like, then they had a column like what to watch out for. And they started talking about this thing called bad each way races that I'd never heard of in my life. And it was like breaking down just the mathematics of like poor each way races where there's a heavy odds on shot basically, and second or third favourite look shoe-ins for the place. And if you combine them into an each way lucky 15, it's the worst bet we can lay because we're paying treble the odds, one winner on a lucky 15. If one of them wins and your place part of the other 3 is significantly shorter than it should be, we're going to lose money on them. So all these things were just taken away in the back of my head. Geez, you can win money off gambling. I'm looking this out of Betfred. Jesus, these type of bets, geez, they don't want these. They're not going to be advertising these type of bets in the shop window sort of thing. And all that was just ticking away in my head. And I was like, by the end of getting to university, like my final year dissertation at university was on bad each way races and their effect on favourite long shot bias. That's what I wrote my dissertation on at university. And I look back at it now and it's like very, very basic. I find it quite basic, but it was just as I was learning what to do and how I could make money out of it. And that kind of really piqued my interest about wanting to work in gambling full time, basically.
Wow, what a story, mate. So when you were working with a Betfred, I think it was, you said, so you were saying that they had customers coming up to them placing bets and you were trying to encourage them to place Yankees?
Yeah, that was in the Coral shop. Yeah, like
Coral,
they'd obviously be able to work that, like that head office when you can break down bets by bet type and you'd see what bets you're winning the most on. So the Yankee doesn't include a single. So if you're basically in a shop and guessing and you're picking 4 horses out the paper and 4 horses off the wall, like if you don't even have your singles covered, like you're really struggling to make any kind of money at it. So yeah, like that's they'd did look at bet types, and like it was just real interesting reading the literature, because it was obviously written by someone at head office, and it was just telling me things that I'd not considered or didn't have any appreciation of. And it just gave me a broader understanding of what a good customer is and a bad customer is, and kind of, and then you try, and because you're obviously betting yourself when you're that age, and you've got the student loan burning a hole in your pocket sort of thing, and you're just trying to work it out to get by and get a few quid. And it taught me a few things, and it was kind of like my starting point, really.
I asked this question to a lot of guests. Was there anything like you were shocked by, like moving from, when you first started working for a bookmaker at a betting shop to, even maybe when you started at Paddy Power, was there anything that shocked you other than, the ones you've already mentioned, like the, people winning a lot, or, some of the like education, I guess, you got?
Yeah, like I always remember doing, when I was working at Coral, you'd see the great thing I think about gambling and horse race and everything, you just get every demographic of person mixing together. Essentially, you get the guy that's worth 10 million quid, and he's trying to get a bet on, he's trying to push in front of the old woman, like it sort of thing. Like you get every single mix of person. And I think it kind of like it appeals to the senses. It's like I think it's just interesting that you get all the demographics mixing together, and they all have that impulse to try and get one over and try and get something for nothing. Essentially, it's that's quite interesting. Like when I was in the Coral shop, we would have seen, like I always remember Grand National Day, which would have been a big day in the shops, and you get absolutely everyone, all the once a year people don't know what they're doing. It's absolutely pandemonium in a betting shop on Grand National Day. And I remember that very quickly, about half an hour into the day, all the tills stopped working. So we couldn't settle bets, we couldn't translate bets, we had to just take every bet manually, and we took something like 8,000 bets between 4 of us in the day. And then we were having to work out all the payouts and stuff like that. And I just remember on my lunch, because I was like the young kid in the shop, like everyone else in the shop, it was kind of like their job, essentially, the full 9 to 5 full-time job, and I was just there filling in bits and pieces of the week. So as a bit of a decoy, I used to always go for my lunch, and I had this little like satchel type university thing bag on me and have my books in and whatever. And they sent me on the bank run on Grand National Day just because it'd be a bit inconspicuous, the student leaving the shop. And I had 12 or 13 grand in cash, and I'd never seen that much money in my life. And I had 12 or 13 grand in cash, and I got the book for the bank, and I had to walk around the corner and deposit the money in the bank. And I just remember just going, Jesus Christ, like if this goes wrong, like if someone comes after me, just like you see money, like, but then I've seen the flip side of it. We had, like, it was just around the time that fob teas were introduced in the UK, so I would have been working in the betting shops just briefly when fob teas came in, the fixed odds betting terminals, and like it probably was even better than it ended up being before they got banned. But like I saw a guy like just before Christmas put in about $1,000 into a fob tea machine, and then proper grown man in the Salford shop, so a rough shop, and he was like shouting over at us behind the counter saying, "You're controlling the numbers, you're controlling the number that's coming up, and you're not letting me win," and we're going mad. And then at the end of his session, where he basically lost all his money, like he started crying, and like Jesus, like absolutely mind blown. So you go from there's people who win, and then like there's I was what would I have been, 18, 19? Like you don't know didn't really have the training to deal with that. Like a grown man crying because he'd lost all his cash just before Christmas. And so there are pros and cons to their industry, and I think like the industry is kind of copping on a little bit to that side of things. But like, I still think there's probably a lot to be said for more can be done in that sphere anyway. Yeah,
no, that's crazy, mate. And then, so what you started with doing with Paddy Power, how did you go from working at Coral and Betfred to working with Paddy Power?
Yeah, so like, so I was at university. Just before I started university, I applied for a job with IG Index. So I didn't even have a degree, hadn't been to university, had bad grades at college pretty much. I applied with a job with a company called IG Index. I don't know if you know much about them, like Stuart Wheeler's company, and there's there's a few smart guys that would have worked there, like proper industry veterans who'd still be like bouncing around Twitter and giving opinions on bits and things. And I always think, Jesus, that would have been a serious place to really learn my craft. But I got a very polite letter back from IG Index saying, come back when you've got a bit of experience. So like I was like, grand. Finished my degree. It was getting to the end of my degree, like pretty disillusioned with university life by the end of my third year. I was kind of like done. I was like sick of being skint basically, and just wanted to earn a few quid and kick off in the industry. So there was a job going at Betfred around the time, because I was there. I'd been there a couple of years, and it was like football trader, junior football trader, 16 grand a year. And I was like, oh geez, like 16 grand a year, that'd be pretty standard Manchester wage, and like you're really gonna have to progress from that to kick on, sort of thing. So I was like, I'll look around and try and find another job essentially. So I had the racing post, and it was like April, May, my final year at uni. So this is how much thought I'd put into my career. It was like, basically, I'm about to graduate, and I don't have a job, and I've not applied for a job. And there was a job popped up in the racing post for a junior horse racing risk manager with Paddy Power. I was like, Paddy Power, I'm sure I've seen that checker. Like, don't know much about them. Don't really bet with. I think I had an account, and I'd had 2 bets with them, and didn't really know much about Paddy Power. I had the best in Dublin. Yeah, that makes sense. And so I was like, I'd never been to Ireland in my life. So I basically sent off an application for the job. And I turned 21 on the 5th of June. And I was on the next flight out from Manchester to Las Vegas. Like I wanted to go to Vegas basically, and I went with one of my mates. I got the first flight after I turned 21 to Vegas from Manchester, and I was there for 10 days, and I had about 2 grand for the 10 days, and it was just brilliant. Absolutely, me and my mate had a brilliant time. Saw some mad stuff, but I had Paddy Power contact me when I was in Vegas. So I had my phone so like they were ringing me, and I was like, it must have been getting like an international dial tone and whatever. And I was like, oh, can you ring this number? And I have no credit on my phone or whatever. And they ended up ringing the lobby in Treasure Island. This is how rich I was, staying in Treasure Island. And they rung the phone in the lobby in Treasure Island, and I basically had my phone interview for Paddy Power in Treasure Island in Las Vegas, which is, they must have been thinking, Jesus, this guy's got serious issues. Like, and I ended up getting a face-to-face interview. It was like the final stage face-to-face interview, but I was coming back from Vegas, so I was like, grand. And I had one suit to wear I had it with me in Vegas in the suitcase. So when we were flying back to England, planes got diverted with thunderstorms and stuff like that. And basically they lost our bags at Heathrow, and we had to divert to Heathrow and then come back up to Manchester. So I basically got to Manchester, I think about 4:30 in the afternoon, like getting off like 2 or 3 different planes, 4:30, no suit, I'm absolutely skint, and I'm flying to Dublin at 8 o'clock in the morning. So I had to get the train, like absolutely wrecked. We've been traveling for like 30 hours. I had to get the train into Manchester and find like the worst suit shop in the world. And I bought a suit. I genuinely bought a full suit for about 50 quid, right? Like horrific suit. It had this little like red tailored lining, like so cheap. Like it must have been, I don't even know if it was a charity shop. It was shocking anyway. And so I basically flew out to Dublin in the morning, got a taxi up to Paddy Power's head office, which would have been in Tala in Dublin at the time. Had an interview, flew straight back, and basically got the job. And as soon as I got my grades and graduated, I moved straight over to Ireland, basically, and started. Like I moved over on I think I got the boat with in a car on the Saturday morning, started work on the Monday, sort of thing. So and I was in a B&B for the first 2 weeks, sort of thing.
Wow. Jeez, you've ripped in with some great stories so far, mate. This is awesome.
I've been planning for this, I was like, okay, all the good stories, and if it gets worse, like
it gets worse. Yeah. I mean, you sound like the perfect gambling employee at the moment, mate.
Yeah. Well, I wasn't at that time. I'll tell you, I was very green, didn't know a lot, and it was. From my own personal point of view, there was definitely a lot of trial and error early on, and a lot of error, sort of thing. And
yeah, of course,
lost money early on, sort of thing. And but yeah, it was definitely keen to learn. Had a bit of street smarts about me as well as a small bit of book smarts, and yeah,
Yeah, it's a really it's a really open industry, betting. I don't know if it's as much like that nowadays, but just about every guest I've had on that's worked for a bookmaker, they've all started like, something like a betting shop or something like that, and then just gradually work their way up. Not many people have come in with like a degree in mathematics or like statistics or anything like that. It's very rare.
I think, to be honest with you, though, I think it's changing. I'd say you're interviewing guests that have been in the industry 10 years. And
Exactly, yeah.
Like my generation of people probably would have started in the betting shops and tried to build the way up and sort of thing. But like, I'd say you're looking at needing a degree sort of thing. And that's kind of where the demographic of companies' head office. And I don't think it's required. Like I learned plenty on my degree, but I don't know how much of it is applicable to what I do now or what I ended up doing. Like, I think if you've got a little bit of cop on, you're a little bit intelligent, you're willing to graft, like there's like the degree's fine, it looks great on paper and it shows, but like, I'm not sure how, I'd if I was employing people, I'd be considering people without degrees as much as people with degrees.
Exactly. I mean, how much, like, there's no degree in gambling, is there? Like, the best degree in gambling you can get is just working on either your side of the industry or maybe working what you're doing now, like professional gambling. Like, that's the best way to learn.
Yeah, the way to learn is, I find the way to learn is, it's not for everyone, but like losing your money early enough, and then trying to work out why you lost your money and trying to get smarter that way is kind of like if you think you're going to come into the industry and have it sussed straight away, you're going to struggle. Like I would have, Jesus Christ, when I moved over to Ireland, like I'd say about 3 months in, I actually lost my rent money. It's not a great story if we're talking about responsible gambling and everything like that, but like I thought I'd found the keys to the castle. Like, I'm working in a head office. I've seen Betfred people win. Now I'm at Paddy Power. They'd be letting a lot of owners, a lot of trainers, and I was like, oh Jesus, the trainers bet his horse and like real basic stuff. And I was thinking, gee, he must know what he's doing. And like you cop on soon enough, and like and when you can't pay the rent 1 month, like you either carry on down that road, you either stop gambling, or you sharpen up pretty quick. And that's what I tried to do anyway.
Yeah. Oh, cool, mate. Risk managing horse racing then, and also greyhounds too. How does that compare to other sports?
Yeah, like I think risk management I think the nuts and bolts of every sport are pretty much the same. I'd say you're looking for the smart customers and what they're betting on, essentially. And like I know, like if you want any comments on closing line value, you're probably best off deferring to Matthew Trenhale. Like he considers things that I've not even considered. Like he's very smart on that. But like as a guide, as a bloody good guide for not much work, closing line value is just essentially what I use in a lot of my stuff, a lot of day-to-day stuff. And I think it's what a lot of risk managers and bookmakers use as well. I'd say it's right 98, 99% of the time, and it's very little work. If you want to get to 100%, you can, but you can put in a hell of a lot of work to get to that 100%, and it's not worth the time incremental to get from 99 to 100% when you've got a barometer that you can use straight away. But there are ways around. Like, you've got to be aware of stuff like where closing line value doesn't matter, like offers, money back specials, money back second, third, fourth to the SP favorite. Like there's loads of little offers where you can bet things that closing line value doesn't have any impact on, but you can be laying a negative value bet. But like horse racing and greyhound racing, there's the same stuff. Like this basic arbitrage. Like I've never been an arb. I've never wanted to arb. I might have bet arbs, but I will have bet them because it's something I want to bet, and they're firming the best price. But don't arb, don't back and lay. Trade in and out of prices. I don't think there's that much longevity in that. You can do that. You could have done that 10 years ago to a decent scale, but I don't think there's that much longevity in that anymore. Like horse racing has bad each way races, and like stuff bad each way would apply to certain things like snooker, tennis, based on the draw. And when you work out the draw, or if there's a bias in golf with bad weather in the morning or something like that. So there's all those different little things. Like greyhound racing has its own particular niches as well. Like there's a phenomenon in greyhound racing called, I don't know what you call it in Australia because you're a big greyhound racing country as well, but like we call them twicers or like non-chasers, like chasers over here. And basically you get greyhounds. You need to be aware of all the different anomalies that can impact your P&L essentially. So there'd be greyhounds over here. Like the best one would have been a dog that retired years ago, but like there was a dog running around Sheffield dog track in England that was called Dad's Billy. And it basically was a quick dog, it'd ping out, and as soon as it led in a race, it'd pull itself up a little bit and it'd let other dogs go ahead of it. And then it wasn't chasing the hare, it was chasing the dogs. It was chasing the dogs in front of it. So what you'd find had happened, like this dog ran 150 times and won 5 races, but it finished second and third 80 times. So like its chance of finishing second and third was astronomical and its chance of winning was small. So what you'd find out, you'd get instances where that dog would start 20-1 to win a race and you knew it wasn't going to win. The win price was right. There was no manipulation of the win price. But then that can affect markets like forecasts and tricasts. So you know that the dog's got a damn good chance of finishing second or third, and that's not reflected in its 20-1 price. So like you get all the smart guys that find dogs like that and bet them to finish second or third in forecasts and tricasts. There was another dog that used to run around Hove. I think it was called All Four Toes or something like that. But like similar profile, and you bet them to finish second or third, you get an massively inflated price to your forecast and tricast. So you've got to be aware of all different things. And the only way, I honestly think the only way you can work out all those things is by laying a few bad bets and then working out where you went wrong. Like I consider myself quite lucky that, like when I started at Paddy Power, like they were laying bets and they were laying decent bets. And if you got a bet wrong and you were a risk manager and you laid a bet and it cost the company a few quid, you'd get called into the office and you'd get a frigging bollocking and you'd learn, Jesus, I can't do that again. Like, I need to learn, I need to be aware of that the next time. And that's the way you learn. And I think if you work for a sports book that is laid to lose 500 quid to people that are all right, I just don't think you learn where you're going wrong because you don't have the option because you're just not laying enough bets to develop yourself, sort of thing. So I think that's a big problem with people who are starting in the industry now, that just their immediate reaction is, geez, I can't lay that bet. Like I've got a sheet here and it tells me, oh, that's in for 500 quid, so I can lay my bet to win 500 quid. And I just don't think you learn from people who are smart, and then you basically, and that's how everyone learns in every walk of life. You've got to surround yourself with people who are smart and try and learn from them essentially.
Yeah, on laying bets though, you mentioned a little bit then, but how did you know when the best time was to risk it, and when was the best time to lay your bets? Is it kind of like, is there any like standard structure or guidelines to go by for you as an employee, or is it just you get better as you go along and your judgments get better?
Yeah, I think you can, head offices these days, you can break down your P&L any way you like. So you can break down, what tends to happen is you stick up prices for something. And when you put your prices up originally, that's probably the one time, that's the immediate time where there's a chance that you could be wrong because all you've got is your opinion. Your opinion's not being shaped by any bets you've laid. So as you approach the off time in an event, just generalizing here, the closer you get to the off time, your price should be being beaten into shape essentially by the market and by people that are participating in that market. So you should have less confidence in your prices just when it's you pricing them up. Now you can point to track record and things like that, but if you only need to price one thing wrong, then that can have a knock-on effect to your P&L sort of thing. So I think you've just got to respect. I think you need to respect the market. I think you need to respect the smart bets that are coming into you. A lot of times, I think you're pricing up events where there's plenty of asymmetric information out there. Like you do not know everything when you're sticking up a market, or you might be told to put up a market. And you're like, well, geez, I'm not that confident about sticking this up. There's plenty of unknowns here, and it's the same in horse racing, I suppose. Like horse racing, there'll be people talk about the margin bookmakers take and all that. That race is stuck up to 140%, especially in dog racing as well. That race is up to 135%. but there'll be information that you're just not aware of, and the only way you're going to be aware of it is by letting someone smarter than you. And then I still think you need to incentivize the people that have that information to be genuine and forthcoming with that information with a genuine bet. Like, with the way limits are going and the way limits have gone, I think a lot of smart guys, like, they can mess around with prices and manipulate markets and stuff, and that's basically it. And then try and hope that those manipulated prices stay a little bit closer to the off, and then they can get bigger bets down. But like, I think there does need to be some kind of trade-off where you incentivize people that have information that you don't have to help beat your prices into shape. And I don't think there's enough of that. Like, the problem really is like that's the European model kind of hasn't developed that way. It's kind of developed as a way where they can basically close unprofitable customers, not let them a bet, let them a quid bet, like with you, and say, we're not closing you, but you can bet online only, and then your online limit's a quid. But like that, the smart guys aren't incentivized to, for want of a better word, be honest earlier on with their opinions, and then they can try and beat prices into shape to jump into the cycle later downstream, sort of thing, for a higher bet. I think there probably just needs to be some kind of acknowledgement of the smarter customer and how he can be beneficial to your book as well. But it's not the way it's gone, unfortunately.
Well, how does it make you feel when you were working with Paddy Power and Betfair? Like, did you ever feel like you were being immoral or, unethical or anything like that when you were limiting players just because maybe I don't know if they took lots of money, but maybe they were just beating the closing line over and over?
Yeah, I think it's a tough one because, like, when you're a bookmaker's employee, you're betting yourself, and you're aware of what goes on because it's happening to you or other places. So like, it's kind of par for the course, sort of thing. But definitely not immoral. But yeah, I think it's just like the way the game's developed. It's kind of just not like, I don't know. I'm not sure how to put it. I don't think bookmakers, with the way things are incentivized to lay smart guys. Like if there's one thing Freakonomics taught me, is like, people respond to incentives. Like, I really think you have to almost make it in the bookmaker's interest to deal with smart customers. So like, I saw recently somebody talking, and I thought it was a very good idea. Someone smarter than me can tell me why it's not a good idea, but like, tax structures for bookmakers, it's just there's just one tax structure for one country, one tax structure for another company, same with different states and things like that. I think that if you split whether your bookmaker is recreational to a shrewder bookmaker, that recreational bookmakers, who they can close winners, they can limit bets, but I think they should probably have to pay a higher rate of tax. And people who are willing to deal with smart guys to some kind of liability limit. Like, I'm big on free markets, but if there's a bookmaker, if there's a model where it incentivizes via a lower tax structure, that the bookmaker is incentivized to deal with smart customers, I think that's something that could potentially work. But then you're relying on regulators to know what they're doing, and regulation tends to be where you go when you're not.
It would be a nightmare, wouldn't it, to regulate that?
It would be a disaster. Like, it would be tough, but like, and I'd have no confidence in like the current regulators doing anything like that. But like, it could happen if you got smart heads together and see if something happened. But you never know. The game is the game.
Yeah. And you mentioned in your LinkedIn profile that you were managing turnover for Paddy Power. Sorry. Can you explain kind of what exactly you mean by that?
Yeah, like, so I would have been my last 4 or 5 years, maybe, Paddy Power, which then became Paddy Power Betfair. So I would have been in charge of Greyhound racing. I would have been the point of contact basically for anything Greyhound racing. Anything Greyhound racing related. Get that. but yeah, like that would have encompassed the Paddy Power brand, shops and online, Betfair, exchange and sportsbook, B2B relationships with PMU in France and any other B2B relationships we were going after. It would have been like the Racing Post Greyhound TV, like Paddy Power's contract with them and negotiating areas of that. And we have bags racing in England, or we did. So dealing with bags, I would have been part of a team of guys that putting together Paddy Power's case and things pro Paddy Power towards those contracts and things like that. And then my team of guys, when I left, we had 3 guys. I was basically the team leader, essentially, of 3 traders, and it was basically managing anything Greyhound related for the combine company.
Okay.
And I think we did a fairly good job given the resources that we had to put into it.
Yeah, and back to talking more Greyhound related kind of stuff. What's kind of, or also horse racing too, what's your compiling, trading these markets? Is there like a worst case situation for you? Is there like a nightmare situation where, maybe nightmare is a bit of an exaggeration, but like a situation where it's easy for punters to take advantage of you?
Yeah, like I'd say the one thing that keeps horse racing bosses up late at night is just some kind of multiple bet clicking, and whether that's smart, like you might be aware of Barney Curley in the UK, like the type of bets Barney Curley used to do, and it was just like horses under the radar, and on a given day, putting them all up in multiples and try and bring down the house sort of thing. So like being aware of that, which doesn't always take that much money to achieve. Then basic things like the Frankie Dettori, the Royal Ascot meeting, where Frankie Dettori had the 7 winners, the Magnificent 7, and where like something like that occurring again, where there's literally, if you guarantee price and people are taking a price, there's not much you can do. So I'd say that kind of managing that kind of situation keeps people honest and keeps people on the toes, because they're the type of days where you can lose your job sort of thing, like if it goes wrong. So that's what. But
isn't that like the same, multiples, isn't that the same reason why you make lots of money too?
Yeah, no, it would be. Yeah, you're exactly right. Multiples would be the highest. If you want to limit your losses and you don't know what you're doing, you should just play singles and you'll lose your money at a slower rate, sort of thing. Like if you want to lose your money a little bit quicker in general and you don't know what you're doing, place multiple bets. It's, that's where they make the money. Like you see the multiples advertised in the shop window for a reason, sort of thing. So it is where they make the money, but it also is where they're most exposed as well. On the rare occasions where they are exposed.
How are you? Sorry, keep going.
I was just going to say, and then Greyhound racing is slightly different. Like I always say about Greyhound racing, it tends to be quite badly managed at bookmakers, just because if you have the worst guy in the world as your Greyhound guy and he's absolutely useless, and there's that many races where there's no smart bets to be had because of the margin, like Greyhound racing just ticks over. The operators win 15% Greyhound racing without any skill. And then you could have, I'm not saying this is me, but like you can have the best guy in the world trading the Greyhound racing book and you win 15% plus a small incremental sort of thing. So like the difference between good and bad is quite low, and that's why the sport in England doesn't get that much attention from a trading point of view. It's kind of a bit of a cash cow. It kind of prints money. It doesn't. You can have the worst input in the world, and it kind of prints its money every year, sort of thing.
Oh. Why is that? Why is it so much? Why can you have someone that's just terrible? I mean, in Australia, I've never really watched any UK greyhounds, but my theory in Australia, if that was the case, would be the fact that the horse races are on from 12 to 5 every day, and you're on the piss all day. And I've done this with my mates. And you've won, let's just say, $300, $400, And then your degenerates will go, right, let's get into the Greyhounds when you're about 10 beers deep.
It's never a good finish to the night.
No, exactly.
Greyhounds is kind of it's just kind of, there's that much of it in England. Like, it's as saturated as it gets. Like, some days, like there's two channels fighting over the scraps at the moment in England, and it can result in 140 races a day. Now, I don't know what it's like where you are. Like, our prize money is absolutely abysmal as well. Like, the whole thing is a mess essentially. But there's 140 races a day, and like a lot of those, like, it's a big retail sport as well. So like, we have loads of betting shops over here. We had 10,000 at one stage, a little bit less than that now, or in the UK anyway. And it's just churn. There's a race every 2 or 3 minutes, and if there's 20 smart guys in the country and they're absolutely having it right off, they're more than being drowned out by the margin and by the fact that there's 10,000 shops open and there's people in all those shops just betting away on favourites and second favourites, and and it just gets the chances of you losing a lot of money. It gets buried in the turnover. It's just all good turnover basically. So like, that's why you can get away with just leaving it and letting it tick over. And you can see the firms that do it. Like, it's there's not much trading goes on in greyhound racing over here. Like, I give a shout out. Like, when I started at Paddy Power, William Hill were like the benchmark. I was coming into Paddy Power and I was doing competitor surveys, and I was looking around. I was like, Jesus, William Hill. And I bit of background research, and then starting to work out the sport. I was like, they employ traders and they know what they're doing. They can price races up. They own greyhounds. Like, William Hill sponsored the English Greyhound Derby at the time. They had good limits. They were like the benchmark. And my aim was just get to William Hill and surpass them. And as we were kicking on with that, they kind of just pulled the plug. No sponsorship. Traders seemed to leave. And I honestly believe, and people correct me, I think we had the best greyhound product at Paddy Power Betfair. Now, not so much when it came to the price in the 120 races with just sticking up any old crap and letting somebody beat the prices into which it became at the end, kind of small limits, and beating the early prices into submission, and then they would be your prices. But when we were actually pricing 15 to 20 races a day, and we had opinions on those races and would take a bet on those races, I think we had the best product at the time for a couple of years. And now I look at the landscape. I think, shout out to Ladbrokes. I think the guy at Ladbrokes is very good. He's probably the industry leader for me, James Price. He has a good go at it. I think there's an independent firm over here called Star Sports who employ a lad, and he has a go at pricing markets up and stuff that's not on Betfair and stuff that he can't copy. And I think that's to be commended. But those two firms are kind of on their own at the moment. So I think there's just nothing. It's just churn at the moment, and I think the sport has gone to the dogs essentially.
Why is there a reason why there's just a bigger margin on greyhounds?
I just think it's always been the case. It's always a sport that if you could name certain tracks in England and Ireland, and if you asked an independent bookmaker for a bet, they'd be scared of certain tracks. And it was basically because what used to happen in the day before early prices, we used to have, I don't know if you have it in Australia, I'm not too familiar with the Australian landscape, but we have board prices over here. So for greyhound racing, 4 or 5 minutes before the start of the race, the prices will come in from the course, and then that's your show price. You didn't actually trade that price. It was just the price on the course. And if you were getting filled in on something, you could occasionally send cash to that course and ring someone up and say, like, we want to bet this dog just to manage your liabilities, sort of thing. But what we had, and what a lot of bookmakers had an issue with, was for the first 30 seconds of that 5-minute period before the race, the on-course bookmakers either were a bit unsure of what they were doing, or there was a little bit more skullduggery going on, and we'd have to honour bad prices in like a 30-second, 1-minute window, and we'd get absolutely filled in. And for that 1 minute window, as soon as the prices came in, bookmakers would lose money, especially at certain tracks, Crayford and Harlow on certain tracks in the UK. And you just couldn't win money in that because the prices were so bad from the track. Now, what happened with early prices? Now, people moan about early prices, and I do. I don't bet Greyhounds early because they kill your account for a start. But what we had to do is we had to then start sticking up the races early to not. And people moan, I can't get a bet on either. Bet to win 50 quid. Or if they're not going to take any bets on this, I'm just going to change the prices. They need to stop pricing them and just let the show price come in. But we were losing that much money. So what bookmakers had to do is stick these prices up. They had no confidence in. Like, one guy in the office in the morning can't put up 120 races and have any opinion on it. It's just crap prices go out. They get beaten into shape for as little money as possible. But what that takes away is it takes away the bookmaker on course being able to stick up a shit price as his first show, because he's seen 6-1 badly compiled price offshore and knows it's now 2-1, so he can't stick it in at 6-1. He's not got that out. If he does, he gets pulled up on it straight away that they're trying to have it off, sort of thing. So what happens is the first show is corrected, and the money that has saved by correcting the first show has more than justified having crap prices early, and that's kind of the issue Greyhound racing has. It's just interesting the way the dynamic of the market has worked, but yeah, that's kind of the reason basically.
So nowadays, would you say there's any inefficiencies at all in Greyhound racing?
Loads.
Oh, well, good.
Yeah, it's just getting on them. Like, it's I just leave it. Like, I always say to people, like, if you're starting off in, like, people talk about Kelly and half Kelly and quarter Kelly and stuff like that for like racing and Greyhounds over and things like that. It just forget that. Just absolute nonsense. Like, you can't get on half the time, so forget your Kelly strategy straight away. I always think that if you've got 100 quid, if you want to be a professional gambler or want to be gambler or want a slight extra income, if you've got 100 quid in your bank account, I think you should wait for the 10-1 Greyhound that you think's even money and have your 100 quid on. And if it loses, save another 100 quid up. The flip side of that is if you've 100 grand in your bank, don't have your 100 quid on that dog at 10-1, because that betting account is probably going to be worth more than $1,000 to you. So I think you have to tailor your strategy to just where you are, where your career's at, and where your bank balance is at. Basically, if you're starting off small, I'd wait and I'd find the biggest mistake I can and have every single penny on it. And if it loses, just start again. And I think that's how you build your bankroll. That's kind of what I did for building my bankroll with certain bets. I was realizing that if I was having 10 bets a day on small incremental edges and having singles, it was taking me an absolute age to build any kind of bankroll. And I was just like, I'm just going to wait for something and just have the absolute lot on. And if it gets beat, I'll start again. And that's and then your strategy evolves as you build a bank balance, and you just can't have the absolute lot on, or neither would you want to when you've got a few quid, sort of thing. So I think that'd be my small bit. That's kind of what I did, building up just waiting for big mistakes and trying to have as much on as I could, basically.
So you're saying there's not many mistakes, but sometimes you'll just get huge mistakes in Greyhounds?
Well, Greyhounds, you get huge mistakes all the time because the first price just isn't compiled. So just on Greyhounds is at one sport in particular. You see it on all sports. Like my first proper touches would have been off horse racing specials and like football, anti-post football sort of thing. Just waiting for big mistakes and just knowing that you had a chance of getting down if you put a bit of work into it, and just waiting for big mistakes and just having everything on, having absolutely everything on. And
so they're not compiled, you're saying, Greyhounds?
Greyhounds in particular. Greyhounds at the end, when I left, Greyhounds were not compiled at all.
And what year was that?
They're not compiled now. If you just have a look at them, like, you can see what happens. Like, you can, honestly, God's honest truth, because you have 120 prices, you try and type in 700 prices. Try and type in 700 prices into an Excel spreadsheet and tell me how long that takes you. So that's, even if you are pricing a race up, even forget that part. Even just manually entering the prices for 700 dogs is fucking, it takes you forever. Like, it's absolutely soul destroying stuff. So that's kind of the way it was. Now, there is a solution to this, and like I got onto the Racing Post and I said to the Racing, what happens in the UK now on Graham Racing is the Racing Post do price guides for the dogs, and they're just basic. They're no reflection of what price the dog's gonna go off at, basically. So what happens is the firms that stick the prices up in the morning, if the Racing Post says 3-1, they go 11-4. If Track 4 says 3-1, they go 7-2, and they just toy around with the prices based on that guide, and then they just let the market beat them into shape for no money, basically. Now, I said to the Racing, I got onto the editor of the Racing Post last year, and I just said to him, I said, because he wrote a column about nobody being able to get on early prices, and I just said to him, there's a solution to this. I said, and you guys are actually part of the solution. I said, if you don't put those guides in the paper, I said, the bookmaker does not have a first reference point. So they'd actually have to, I said, if you don't put the price guides into the Racing Post, I said, they just do not have that first reference point. And then they'd have to go, well, we either price these or we can't put them up because we don't have the guide. But the Racing Post are kind of like, they're probably being funded by the bookmakers most of the time. So like, you can see why that's not going to happen. But that is the solution. Guy came back to me and he was absolutely spot on. He just says, that's not up to us. That's not our concern. Bookmakers should price them. And he's right, but it's not going to happen because it's too labor intensive. So yeah, that's the solution, but it won't happen. Yeah.
So back to betting shops a little bit, it's a bit different in Australia. So I assume that when you're in a betting shop, from what I'm hearing in the UK, I mean, I haven't really spent any time in one, was when I was in England. I was very, very poor, so I didn't try betting or anything like that. But it seems like that you almost become like traders to some point when you're not trading as in trading liability, but you're able to choose what bets you accept. Whereas in Australia, they just get fed through a machine. So you just fill out your ticket, feed through the machine, and then the bartender just asks for the money, give them the money, and they give you the ticket back. So, I mean, I don't know if you've got any, I mean, you said you don't have too much knowledge of the Australian greyhound racing industry, but it'd be interesting to hear whether you think it's a similar situation in Australia with the compiling, because, I mean, I'm sure that over time they profile you. If you go into the same, in Australia it's called a TAB. If you go to the same one over and over, I'm sure they'll, over time they'll be like, all right, we can't, if you see, that's the bartenders, if you see this bloke, don't accept his bets. But I mean, there's so many of them, mate. They're like every couple kilometres. So you could just do a bloody rotation. So I'm wondering if you know anything about Australia and whether they compile for greyhounds either.
Yeah, so like, I think it's better where you are, because like I spoke to the guy, I actually had quite a good relationship with him. I've not spoken to him recently. It was a guy called Simon Ainsworth, who would have been the head greyhound guy at Sportsbet. So when Paddy Power bought Sportsbet,
no, basically. I haven't.
Yeah, like he. I
try to stay away from the greyhounds, mate. Because, like I said before, my issue was I'd be betting on horses all day, and then we'd get pissed off, and it was a nightmare, mate.
Yeah, no. See, man, Simon, like he would have tried to give me a bit of the lie of the land. And I know you have the Tab or TAB or whatever shops over there, but it's kind of similar here. Like we'd have to bounce around bits of shops, and the people that stick shop bets on for me would, like I'll tell you, the COVID masks definitely help for longevity anyway. Baseball cap and a COVID mask is kind of handy.
That's genius. Now you've got the perfect excuse to wear it for the rest of your life.
I know, yeah. Just very ultra. Can get the hand sanitizer, stinking a hand sanitizer, and they just might think you're a little bit cautious. So like, it might go down well. But yeah, no, like we have the same. We bounce around shops, but it's kind of going the same way as you. We've got like called self-service betting terminals, SSBTs, and each bookmaker is either using the BGT product out of Vienna, or they're building their own, like Hills and I think Powers are building their own, and maybe another couple of bookmakers. I'm not sure, but like it's kind of they're gonna eventually do away with staff. I'd say that'll be the way it'll go. I'd imagine the shops would just be because they're quite labour intensive, and that brings other issues. And I think that there's actually a shop near me, an independent shop that is just machines. There's actually no staff there. There's no counter, and it's just 4 or 5 machines. And
makes sense, doesn't it?
It's grim though, isn't it? Like, Jesus Christ, it's grim. I don't know how they get around that with the responsible gambling side of things, but maybe they will. But I think it's just pretty soul destroying. I like the intellectual challenge of it, and just being able to solve the puzzle, and the money's nice as well. But like, it's something to do. It's something to occupy your mind, and it's kind of that becomes, like, you talk about addiction and stuff, but that becomes quite addictive to me, trying to solve the puzzle. And it's just interesting. If you can get a few quid out of it as well, it's kind of nice. But I'm waffling. I don't know what I'm saying.
Or if you can go back to the original question was if you think it's the same in Australia in terms of not compiling greyhounds.
Yeah, I think from what I know, I think you compile more because you have the compulsory liability limits.
Yeah.
So I think that incentivizes you not to put up crap prices because you have to lay them. And if you don't have to lay them, like, you're not gonna put any work into compiling them, are you? So, like, like, bookmakers will react if that ever comes in. Like I say, I'm all for free markets and stuff, but like, I think there's plenty of guys that just aren't that smart getting caught up in account restrictions over here. It's really bad. And like, I think it's also pretty sad that model of bookmaking has been outsourced to places like America and stuff. And you're seeing that like this is our export. This is what we've done. We give you crap bookmaking basically. And it's just, it's like, it could be better, but whether it will end up being, I don't know.
Yeah, you're making me a lot more excited to get home, mate. In the thought that they weren't compiling greyhounds, mate.
I can't believe you can place a bet with a bartender, man. That's incredible.
Yeah, well, I mean, unless it's changed since I've been home, it's been a year or two.
Yeah.
But it's you just feed the ticket through the machine, and maybe I was never a smart bettor back in Australia, so I never got rejected or anything like that. But I assume it happens. It must happen, or else it seems way too good to be true.
I think it does. Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Well, that was fascinating talking about the greyhound stuff. That's that's really. And you worked obviously a little bit with horse racing, and you mentioned the multiples and stuff like that. It must be so hard though to. Like, how are you able to, is there easy way of just judging, like, I mean, it must be quite easy when I think about it online, if you're getting, multiples from a new customer or something like that, you're probably going to accept them all. And then by the time, if they are your worst nightmare accepting multiples, if a sharp bettor's just been pumping them in all the time and winning, I guess that's just the easiest way to tell.
Yeah, like multiples, just like customers, like I'd say you're probably at the most dangerous from a customer within the first 50 or 100 bets sort of thing. So like, if a new customer comes on, like for example, I would have ran reports on just new customers and what their business was like. So anyone who opened an account, staking on my sport, stakes over 50 quid, I just want to have a quick look at the account sort of thing. And yeah, like new customer, I think you are susceptible to a new customer, but then like you have to remember as well, most customers are fine. Most customers, like, they've not got a million shops and market caps of billions because most customers are smart. So like, you've got to be careful as well that just you're actually laying the guys that, even like if you're a break-even customer, you're struggling to get bets on in the UK and Ireland just because the transaction costs, you're just not wanted, and that's pretty sad. No. But like, yeah, new customers, I think you've got to be careful of new customers. You also need to be careful, like some of the tactics like me and some of the lads do, is we're trying to look for very slight negative margin bets and then feed them through accounts and seed accounts, and then that gets your limits up. And like, there's certain ways to, so you just got, if you're a bookmaker's employee, you've just got to be aware of that as well, that like, good customers can be good customers until they turn bad, sort of thing. Like, once they turn bad, they don't ever go back good again anyway. So like as soon as, like I always remember at Paddy Power, they had a guy, it was actually with the Betfred sportsbook after the merger, and they had a motor racing driver. I won't say the guy's name, wouldn't have heard of him anyway, I wouldn't have thought. And he was like turning over millions and losing small, but like in the hundreds of thousands. And he turned bad, and he was a big grain customer as well for some reason, and he would have been betting like pre-show arbs, just basic arbs, show arbs, and whatever. I was working out that if we just continue laying his bets, he would take 10% off us on turnover. And just because he was such a high staking customer and he had a big history, he ended up laying him all the way to back till he got his money back and made a few quid before they closed him, essentially. So like it's kind of, you know which way some customers are going, but then like sometimes like with customers like that, the decision can get taken out of your hands just because they're turning over so much money, and you might think, oh, he's gone bad, don't really want to lay these bets anymore, every bet's an arb sort of thing. But someone in another department who gets paid more than you will be saying, he's turned over 8 million quid this year, like, do we want to get rid of him? And
yeah,
when you're reporting, when you're on the stock market and you're reporting to shareholders, turnover is a big thing. Rather than he's winning 100 grand of that 8 million. So like there's certain things that if he would have opened an account and done those bets, staking 50 quid, he would have been gone tomorrow. Like he would have been gone straight away. But the fact that he had a history, he was basically able to get his money back and win some just because of his turnover. So there's like little anomalies and little inefficiencies even in the way bookmakers operate that way because trading doesn't always get the final call, sort of thing.
From a Trademate perspective with our software, I think it'd be interesting to ask you whether you think it's, in terms of lifetime of accounts, if you had to choose from having a brand new account with 0 bets, you've just signed up, blah, 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 or would you rather have an account that's maybe started off, already done like 100, 200 bets, it's plus EV, but it's losing maybe like a couple $100 or something like that. Like you can see.
It depends what are the limits on these two accounts. Like, is your man who's turned over 200 grand got the same limits as the guy opening an account, or is he up or down? Because that's the big thing. You're trying to increase your limits. Ideally, I'd want a seeded account. I'd want an account that looks okay, that's got plenty of history for over a couple of years, ideally.
Yeah, that's what I meant. Would you prefer an account like?
Oh yeah,
is an account with less likely to get limited if it started off really badly, but it's still plus EV, if you get what I mean. Like you can see that this bloke constantly beats the closing line, but after 200 bets, he's actually still down.
Yeah, I think that guy. I'm not even sure if that guy exists, because I'd say even if he's losing money, he can't get on a bet anyway, because it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter for me. It doesn't matter if you're winning or losing. It matters what your expected is, whether you're expected to lose. It's an important distinction. It doesn't matter if you're losing 20 grand. If you're plus EV, if I was a bookmaker, I either don't want your bets or I'm limiting you, sort of thing. So the ideal situation is a guy who turns over a lot of money and he's losing money and he's doing bad bets, and he says, here's my account, let's go half, sort of thing, or something like that. But that is, and he's trustworthy. That's the ideal situation. But they're new accounts. Like I don't go straight in for the kill on new accounts anymore. Like I might have done in the past, and you evolve over time. But like I wouldn't. I seed accounts. I seed accounts with just bets that I think look fine, and can't be an old coin tossing cricket or something to make an account look good and stuff like that. Like just seed accounts, and you just want the bookmakers to have the guard down essentially when you start changing the business essentially like that. Like one of the best accounts I ever had was a guy that was losing, Jesus, he would have been losing a lot of money, 250k to Bet365, and I was able to put through very, very smelly bets on his account for months and months, like guts of a year, 6 months, 9 months maybe. And just, I can't believe they just didn't close him earlier, but he was losing that much money that the longevity of the account just lasted and lasted and lasted. And once a guy's lost, once you've got an account that's lost a lot of money, getting paid is a little bit easier when you win. When you're going in for an account that's got not much history of losing and you win a big amount, then it can get then the rule book comes out and it's anyway not to pay you, isn't it? So like I evolve all the time. I've made a lot of mistakes, and just learn from any new information I get about new accounts, and just always trying to change the way I operate and just try and get better, basically, and try and keep accounts open for longer and get more money out of them, essentially. And that's not always placing really plus EV bets. It's mixing in a bit of rubbish as well, and just
of course,
just any rubbish that's got a low limit that you can max out on is always good for an account, because it looks like you're hitting the maximum, but it's a low limit market and it can get you raised overall. Just basic things like that, basically.
Yeah. All right, mate. Should we talk about your professional gambling now? I feel like we went through a lot of stuff with Paddy Power and Betfair Group, but I'd love to go through that. Especially, I mean, the background you've given us on your career to this point has been brilliant. So, how at this point of your career, when you've worked probably over 10 years in the industry as a whole, were you just sitting there? Was it more like a sitting there champing at the bit, thinking, "Oh, I've got so much knowledge now of the inside of a bookmaker. I think I've got." Yeah. I mean, because I would assume you, like you said at the start that I think you said after like a year of working in the betting shops or whatever, like you're like, "Oh, I can do this myself now." But I mean, after 10,
I definitely
15...
couldn't then. Yeah, I thought I could, but I couldn't. Definitely couldn't.
Yeah,
but like my head had basically gone like 2 years before I left, and it was kind of like, I think life gets in the way a little bit sometimes, and you just kind of like if you've worked quite hard for like 8 years, and then the last year 18 months or whatever, I was just like, oh God, there's got to be more to it than this. Just putting up crap prices and just not taking bets, and just like, oh God, I'd take less money to do something better than this with my time, sort of thing. And then I was just thinking about, like, I can definitely do this. I was betting a hell of a lot on the side. I was working a lot. Like, so when I would have been doing 45 hours a week at Paddy Power, and then to and from work, traveling and stuff, maybe over 50 hours. And I was doing a lot of gambling on the side and stuff like that. And I was turning over big amounts, basically. And I was just like, I'm coming into work here today for 120 quid after tax, and I've got $5,000 in play on something else. And I was just like, it's getting to the point where it's just getting a little bit silly now just to be coming in and just sitting here for 9 hours and pretending to care, sort of thing. And it's really sad, because I'm actually really, 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 really grateful to Paddy Power. Like, if I wouldn't have joined Paddy Power and I would have ended up doing something else, I think that I would have, I'd be panicking about what I would have ended up doing or where I would have ended up, sort of thing. And I'm very grateful for the background they helped me with, and there was a lot of smart people at Paddy Power early on, and they either move on to other things or they get management jobs and they move up the company and progress. And I never had that ambition to be in meetings 9 to 5, sort of thing. I was always wanting to be involved in the market and trade and stuff like that, and just pitting my wits against somebody for money, sort of thing. So I was getting disillusioned. I was turning over a lot of money gambling. Like my book, the year I left, my book on the English Greyhound Derby was 80% of the money that Paddy Power Betfair had taken combined. That was just on greyhound racing. So I was turning over stupid amounts of money, and I was coming in, and I was almost using the day to price stuff up for my own personal things at the end, rather than being committed to my job, which is not the way to be. Like, it's not that cool, but like,
it's the perfect place to be a professional gambler, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, yeah. But like, so I was just like, I can definitely do this, and I was doing it for 2 years. And you have to consider. I always think you've got to consider like the mental side of things. I know like mental health and everything is pretty big at the moment, but like I'm in a little office here in my house, and I've got 2 TVs and 3 screens, and I'm actually on my own. Like, the missus will, if she's working from home, and she'll pop in, and I'm on the phone, but I'm actually not seeing that many people day to day. And I think that's a big consideration, and luckily I'm head-wise pretty strong and I can grind through stuff like that at the moment anyway. So that's a big consideration, I think. Like I had to consider like pension, giving up the pension. I had shares in Paddy Power, the share save scheme, and bits and pieces like that. And I was probably overpaid for what I was doing. Like I was on good money by the time I left. And like I was almost stealing a living by the time I left because I just wasn't that committed to it, which is sad. And I was saying to the missus, I was like, I can definitely do this. And I've got this big, like I built up a decent balance and I can, like if it all goes tits up, it's going to take me 4 years to burn this balance off sort of thing. And I just thought, like, I can definitely do this. And discussing it with the missus, and she basically said to me, she was really good. And she was saying that she had all the confidence that I'd be able to do it. But her big thing was getting a house. And she wanted to get a mortgage on the house and get a nice house and grand. But I wouldn't have been able to do that being self-employed as a gambler. Like I couldn't go into the bank and say, I've got no job, here's a load of cash as a deposit and I've got £1,000 on these lads at 2-1 and they're now even, so that's another 10 grand sort of thing. Like it's just, banks are just a disaster for any kind of self-employment and mortgages in Ireland especially, and especially gambling as well. So like it just wasn't an option. So I had to basically stick around for 6 months to get my bank statements clean, essentially the way a bank would want to see them, just a small cash withdrawals and do all my betting in cash and through other people in the UK and stuff like that. And so I cleaned up my bank statements, and then about 3 months before the mortgage to come through, got the mortgage through, bought a house, bought a really nice house, really delighted with it. Can see me staying here, or us staying here for a while. And when that was through, I was basically, even still when everything went through, and I was just like, wow, God, I could really, if I just knuckled down, could be like could really progress and stuff like this. And then when one of the lads did we did 100 quid each way, lucky 15 with Betfred in the shop, and it clicked for 180 grand and 4 winners, and I was 90% of that particular bet, so I got like whatever 162 grand or whatever. And as soon as that cleared in my account, I was just like, I just do not have a decision to make anymore. Like I was just like, I'm done. And I just went in, and I had another firm approach to me about building a Greyhound model, which I've been putting off for ages because I couldn't do it because I was employed by Paddy Power. And I was just like, I can do that on the side for a little while and help them out. And then I just had the cash in the account, and as soon as that cleared, I was just handing my notice in and just said thanks a lot and good luck basically, and left that day actually.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's not bad. So how like what are you doing nowadays then? I mean, how long have you been a professional now?
I quit Powers in March 2018.
Okay.
End of March 2018. So whatever that is, 2.5 years. Okay. So I've not been employed for 2.5 years essentially. And just like 10 to 15. Like if you like, I have it on my LinkedIn and everything, but I hate saying to anyone that I'm a professional gambler because it comes with all further questions and stuff like that, and it's just wouldn't be mad about going into too much depth, but like it sounds better than it is as well. Like 10-15% of my time is pricing and finding bets, and then 85% of it is getting on and managing money and getting money to people and that kind of thing. So yeah, it's a lot of admin basically, but it's grand. Time is your own, and that's the big thing. I think like not having a boss is just great, absolutely great. And you can do what you like. I want to price up stage 7 of the Tour de France. Yeah, I'll do that this morning, and that'll be me for the day because there's not much on. Like I can do whatever I like, and I think that's better than any amount of money. Having the time to do what you think you want to do, sort of thing.
Yeah, I remember our co-founder Jonas, who's also a pro sports bettor, when he first started, like, you know, you're always excited to tell the person down at the coffee shop, oh yeah, I'm a pro sports bettor. And he said within a couple of weeks or something, he was just like, no, I just started telling everyone I was an accountant. Just do not do it. No, don't do it. IT, man. I work in IT. That's the best thing. Like, it just kills conversations. Dead. Because I guess you are in a way working IT. So I guess.
I've got a few screens already. Yeah.
Exactly. So what sports are you betting then, mate?
I try and bet as much as I can. I try and price as much stuff accurately as I can. Like grew up as a big sports fan, just every single sport basically, and just you can't do everything yourself. And I just try and associate with people who are at the top of the game in certain fields and stuff. So like there's the sport I bet on myself, do a small bit of grounds, do a very small bit of horses. I do a lot of football because I understand I've played it all my life and understand the way the market works and the mechanics of the market work, and I can price football pretty good. Tend to bet a lot of football anti-post rather than actual matches. And then I'm a passive investor in like an Asian handicap syndicate, so I see all the bets that go through that, and I see the prices taken and when they're taken and stuff like that. So that's another facet of the football. I look for anything. I basically look at a month ahead at the sporting calendar and see what sporting events are on that month, and then work my time around that. Basically, Wimbledon's coming up, or US Open's coming up, or whatever. Like I'll be thinking about sports just a month in advance, and then also just trying to work in, just bouncing around websites, trying to pick off bad prices and shops. Essentially, that's the nuts and bolts of it. Essentially.
Are you, like you said, are you pricing up everything, or are you also just looking at the markets and seeing where the big money's going and following the money?
Nah, don't do any of that. Don't do any of that. Don't steam chase at all. Like, I think the problem with steam chasing is, like, you see where you know something's moved and you might want to follow it in, but like you don't know what the correct price is. You need to speak to the guy that's moved it. I think like there's no point. If something was 4 to 5 and it's now 8 to 11, and it looks like it's going 4 to 6, I don't know whether I want to take 8 to 11 or 3 to 4 or whatever. Like, I want to know why the guy bet it at 4 to 5, and he might say it's a 1.77 shot and I've got a 2% edge or something. Like, and steam chasing is no good. I just don't do anything like that. I don't trade in and out. I don't bet stuff and lay it back straight away. I price stuff up, look for mistakes, and general rule, the bigger the mistake, try and get more on, and that's basically it. That's nothing too sharp about that. It's just looking for mistakes and capitalizing on them. And if my prices are right, I'll make money over time if I manage my bankroll right. And if I go bad and my prices are crap, I'll be applying for jobs. That's basically it.
Would you say your edge is the fact that you had 10 years in the industry?
I think you learn things in the industry. There's plenty I've learned outside the industry as well. So there's plenty I've learned in the industry. I think more than the compiling side, I think I learned more compiling and how to price stuff outside the industry, especially in the latter years. I think risk management wise, definitely the industry background is huge, and you're looking for biases. You see how risk managers restrict accounts, and I'm just looking for any flaws in the biases of what they do, basically, to try and increase limits and get bigger bets on, essentially, on mistakes. That's like, I think, basically that. I think compiling, I do a lot. I've learned a lot myself. I think risk management, I think the industry background is absolutely massive. Like, I can work my way around lots of websites and hack into the back ends and see match bets and stuff, and maximum bets and stuff like that, and no flaws in the system just from using accounts and stuff like that, and just stuff like that, basically.
I mean, it must be just valuable, the insight you've been able to get from working on the other side of the fence. How are you getting your bets on nowadays, mate? It must be tough. Are you more so, working towards like the exchanges and the sharps, or are you still, fighting for the with the soft bookies?
Yeah, like both. Excuse me. Like there's some things that the soft books, I want to bet on stuff with them that they think isn't as soft as they probably don't realize, sort of thing. So like, how can I say it? Like, like there's certain ways to get on with soft bookies. Like shops can be good. Like William Hill used to be really good in the shops, but they're pretty bad now. Like, I think these things all go in cycles. Powers used to be good in the shops. They're not great now. Betfred used to be bad in the shops, and they take a decent shop bet if you're a stranger, like stuff like that. So like you're constantly evolving your tactics based on Jesus, it could be based on who the new head of trading is. If the head of trading at Paddy Power goes, gets a job at Google, and someone else comes in with new ideas, things change. So I just try and keep abreast of like what's going on internally at certain firms, and just from working at so many bookies and just people I meet through gambling and stuff, you end up knowing, or through people knowing people who work at bookmakers still and work at different head offices, and you can ask questions about, if I did this, what would happen here, and like I'm just trying to evolve and trying to learn as much about the way a company will react to a certain bet and things like that. But yeah, I target soft bookies, mix it up basically. Lot of shops and online, and if I can deal with trustworthy people that have online accounts and can build relationships that way, I'll look into that sort of thing.
Yeah. And you work in a team, mate, or some sort of team? Because I mean, you've you said you've got a part in an Asian handicap syndicate too. What's it like? I mean, we just had two guys on, Haru Masayan and Andrew. They're both betting partners, and they divide the day up. I think it's like 7 hours each day.
Yeah.
What's it? And it was just fascinating talking to them, because they're almost like two of the exact same people when it comes to like their goals in betting and their risk management, how much they like to stake and all these things. And I assume that's literally the only way it would work, because if you've got someone who's quite risk averse and someone who couldn't give two hoots, then it would probably turn into a disaster over time. You've got to have two people that are of the same personality, I guess.
Yeah.
So what's it like working in a team environment, I guess?
Yeah, like I'm the two gentlemen you just mentioned. I'm definitely different from them straight away. If they're doing 2 7-hour shifts, that sounds a little bit like a job.
Oh, I mean, they split the day up. The day up, so one does half the
markets. Day. Yeah, it sounds like they're betting games, and a lot of games, and whatever sports they're betting on, they have to cover the market in probably more detail than me, like maybe American sports and stuff. I'm a little bit more fluid than I pick and choose what I do, and where I've had edges in the past, and where I think I'm all about doing the least amount of work for the maximum amount of money, basically. Like I'm happy just doing as little as possible and trying to get as much out of it as possible. So but regarding the team situation, like I have guys that I'll share bets with, like I described the Betfred bet there, which I was 90% of, and that tends to be when you've got lads putting bets on for you who realise that they're winning money, and if you're paying them a certain amount to place the bets, they soon realise that, gee, if I was placing these bets, I'd win more money, sort of thing. And then you have then the sharper lads try and cut a deal with you and like say, I'll take something out of this bet rather than you pay me a flat rate every day, sort of thing. So like that, and then on the team aspect, like I don't pool my money as such with other people and have like a business type structure with people, but I pool knowledge of prices and risk basically, and more that kind of things. And I'd have different guys that specialize in different sports that I can bounce certain things on, whose opinions I'd respect, and just try and learn a little bit off them. And we discuss certain markets. And if I was approaching someone, say about a snooker, and I think this guy's a bet because XXX, and if the guy then looks at it and agrees with me, I won't then go off and just take all the price myself. I'll be like, how much do you want on this? We'll see if we can get on this together. So that's more the pooling side of things, rather than pooling our money and working together out of a single pot. It'd be more pooling the knowledge, and then seeing thanks for you giving me your opinion, sort of thing. We now agree with each other. Let's try and get on this together, sort of thing. And that involves a lot of trust as well. Like I've been involved with people that have front run certain things, and you work that out over time and stuff like that. So like, yeah, just always learning, and just learning who you can trust. Trust is a massive thing, I think.
Yeah. And you've also mentioned that you're doing a little bit of consulting. Is there anyone in particular that you're working for, or like any big projects you're doing at the moment?
Yeah, like the consulting side of things, it's just not something that's kind of work again. Like it feels like work. So like I'll help out and do bits and pieces for people if it's something that I'm interested in. So like I did helped with the Greyhound model with a syndicate of gamblers, which for a couple of months, which went well. I've done a bits and pieces with. It was actually through. I had to. I'm trying to think how I can describe this. There was a lawyer that I was using to reclaim some money off a bookmaker, basically, and he put me in touch with. After we were speaking back and forward, and he put me in touch with the executives at a racecourse in the UK that have their own betting product, and met them a couple of times, helped them out with their own internal betting product. Just a little bit of advice. So that's another thing that I did. I was approached about doing something. I'd be slightly interested in this, but I don't know how much work it involved. Regarding some company that was looking at getting a license in Turkey if Turkey was opening up. So like bits and pieces like that, but I don't actively chase any kind of consulting projects. If someone wants to come to me and has an idea, and if I can contribute and I've got the time to do it and the inclination to do it, I'll have a look at it basically. But yeah, it's not something I chase particularly.
Yeah, and a few more questions, mate. And there's something I wanted to ask. I should have asked a couple of questions ago, but we've mentioned betting shops a couple of times. Do you think that's, I mean, I don't know if they're available in every country in the world, but do you think that's something a bettor or a professional bettor that they should have in their toolkit, to something that they can utilize every now and then? Is it worth their time, I guess?
I suppose like there's a lot of low hanging fruit basically, and if you can build a profile in a shop, like London, I find is pretty good. London in the UK is just, if you're in the financial area, it's like kind of one of the pros of doing economics at university was there's a couple of lads that ended up working in banks and hedge funds down in London, and if they're on the lunch hour and they can place bets in Canary Wharf and areas like that, and they've got the suit on and stuff like that, and you can take advantage of higher limits in certain situations. But yeah, I think for me it's not everything I do, but it's a chunk of what I do. It takes a lot of work, it takes a lot of organising, but it's free money at the end of the day, and it doesn't take that much work for me just to organise a few people to bounce around and stuff like that. So it's something that I'm willing to do. If I was Tony Bloom, I wouldn't give a toss about betting shops, but like I'm not Tony Bloom, so like I have to get the crumbs off that table still, I'm afraid. Yeah.
And so you're not going into these shops yourself?
I do occasionally. Like we've got in Ireland, they've brought in money laundering legislation, which is an absolute disaster. Where if you stake $2,000 or win $2,000 on a bet, you've got to provide ID and you've got to provide passport and bank statement and into the shop, and that's kind of quelled my enthusiasm for going around myself, sort of thing.
Okay.
And yeah, like it's different in the UK still. There's ways around that as well, but like it's a little bit of work, and it doesn't stop money laundering in any shape or form. It's just an absolute waste of time. But yeah, UK's still handy. More southern rather than northern. If you go into a northern betting shop with £1,000, Jesus Christ, you'll stand out a little bit, a little less than London.
Yeah, of course. And then two more just general questions for you, mate. If just like a general advice question for someone out there looking to make a long-term profit from betting, what advice would you be giving to these people?
What I alluded to before, I'd work for a big mistake and try and have the lot on and try and build your bankroll up that way rather than doing lots of little small bets. I think that you have to respect the market as well. Like talk about badly compiled prices, but if you're betting on things that close to the off, I think you need to have an edge more than just your opinion. You need to be doing a little bit more in-depth work than that. I think you've just got to. I think you've got to, like, I treat it like a business. It kind of quells my enjoyment of sport a little bit as well, because it is how I derive my income.
Yeah.
So, like, I'm invested in certain things that I'm watching, and then if I'm watching something, I don't need to have a bet on it. But if I'm watching something without a bet on it, I've become less of a fan in general of sports, like football. Like, I'd watch any football game that was on the TV, and now I'm slightly more switched off from it, and not as intensely passionate about the sport, which again is a bit sad. I wish I could get excited in the pub about watching a game and stuff like that, but it's I don't really get my excitement out of sport and watching it anymore, which is one of the downsides of treating it a little bit more professionally. No stupid rules. Like, I hate basic rules that people use, like I'd never bet odds on and stuff like that. Like, just stupid, bland rules. If something's 5 to 6 and you make it 7s on, you should be having a big bet on it. If your price of 7s on is right, like not betting odds on is just doesn't make any sense. The way you make money out of betting is being able to price stuff up, price it accurately, and then if your prices differ from the bookmaker's prices in your favour, managing your bankroll and betting and taking them. It's that simple, and it's just getting your prices right. You need to find a way to benchmark yourself against prices, and closing line. If you're starting off, benchmarking against the closing line is as good as it gets for someone starting off anyway. If you're pricing up a race and you make something 10 to 1 and it goes off 33 to 1, you need to have a look at why you were wrong, basically, and what factors. And you might not be wrong. The horse might be genuine 10 to 1 shot, but and just judge yourself off how accurate those prices are, and get better at your pricing, basically.
Yeah. My internet is currently very unstable. Apparently, I've just got a nice little notification up. But we'll wrap things up. The problem with being in Mexico, mate, you never know what's going to happen.
Yeah, I'm living the dream.
Exactly, mate. One thing you would change in the gambling industry?
One thing I would change in the gambling industry, just a better regulator, essentially, in the UK. Like, a little bit of work put into regulation, and a regulator with a spine would be great. That's a big thing. Like, horse racing, always moan about prize money in horse racing, and greyhound racing doesn't encourage horses and dogs to try and win, and people to invest in the game and things like that. So, like, there's issues around there. But, like, for me personally, a regulator, I'd like to see bets enforceable by law in Ireland as well. At the moment, I can place a big bet and have a big winner in Ireland, and if the bookmaker says I'm not paying you, there's not much I can do about it. So that's another consideration. Like, I can't believe a company that's spawned a giant like Paddy Power gambling losses still aren't enforceable in the country. Is just bizarre, absolutely bizarre. So yeah, regulation. Good regulation set by people who know what they're doing would be nice.
Cool, mate. You've been very generous with your time today, mate, and got lots of stuff out there. This is definitely, by a long shot, the longest podcast we've done so far.
Actually, I don't think that's probably a good thing, to be honest with you, but let's see how it goes down. If there'll be people listening to that in the car, falling asleep and driving off bridges and stuff, that's not a good thing. So.
No, so we don't recommend listening to this in the car, then, eh?
Yeah, all good anyway. Cheers anyway, man. It's good to speak to you. And Peter Sainsbury put me into you guys and said what he did was good, and Peter's a good guy. So it was enjoyable. Cheers, man. Thanks for listening.
Yeah. Shout out to Peter for putting me on to you. Very great guy, and I had a good chat with him. I think it was about 3 or 4 weeks ago. So yeah, if you're interested in kind of differences between betting or the similarities, I guess, between betting and trading stocks, then definitely give that a listen. Mate, where can people find you? I don't know if you're on social media much.
Yeah, not on Twitter. A lot of noise on Twitter, so I don't go on there. I have an email address. You can give that out in the bio if you want. But like at LinkedIn is where I try and I've learned to try and stay off the radar rather than on the radar. So LinkedIn is probably the best place to find me. Not that you don't want to.
All right, tremendous, mate. Thanks again. Podcast coming next for everyone. Should be back on Friday with a preview of the next round with George and Haru as always. But other than that, thanks for listening. Make sure you do a quick rate and review of the podcast and subscribe. And of course, start a free week trial of Trademate Sports if you're interested in implementing any value betting principles into your betting journey. But cheers once again, Anthony, and catch up soon.
Top man, thanks.
Cheers, mate.